freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your first look for the Olympic Games. That's something I don't get to say too often. Joining me to break it all down, Sia Nejad is here. Sia, welcome.
Yeah, Rick, and we weren't sure we were going to have these Olympic Games, so it's even better and even sweeter to get to watch this week, so I'm super excited about it.
And we waited 5 years from the last one. So this is a long time coming. I'm excited. There are some things we'll need to talk about, but also rounding out our crew for today is Greg DuCharme. Greg, it's the Olympics.
It's the Olympics. I am getting a little more and more excited as time goes on. I feel like the Olympics has been this drama that's kind of stood out throughout the entirety of the year for so many, going back to last year, for so many different reasons. And it's finally time to take a look at the play, right? See who's actually going to play. My hope is the drama with, players withdrawing, and I'm calling it drama, whatever you want to call that topic of conversation, hopefully is ending. And hopefully we don't hear about it again. And our final field is set. And these 60, whatever it is, 60 or 59 players end up finishing the event.
As of right now, 59. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. But the format, Sia, is something we actually see fairly often on the PGA Tour. It's a no-cut event. 59 or 60 golfers. We'll talk about that in just a moment. 72 holes. It's stroke play. So there is, no threat of missing the cut. Very little threat of a DQ or a WD. Something. I guess we'll see. But generally guaranteed 4 rounds for this event.
Yeah, so it'll be, it's not going to be a foreign setup to anybody that watches golf, which is kind of cool. So other than just the cut issue or the lack of a cut. So yeah, it's funny because I think when people think of the Olympics, they're just assuming it's going to be different, some sort of like really different kind of quirky setup. But no, this is 59 golfers as of now, just going out for 4 rounds, and whoever has the best score at the end of 4, well, that's your winner. That's your gold medalist and down the line.
The best score at the end of 4. Oh, I like that.
Ooh, that does have a ring to it,
right?
I've heard a lot of complaints, may be strong, but I've heard a lot of, I'll call them complaints. Complaints saying that the format is just the wrong kind of format, and we see this too much, and it needs to be something different. But if you think about the purpose of the Olympics, deciding who's going to be a gold medalist, who's going to, be the, I guess the idea is the best golfer in the world. You're determining the gold medalist. Stroke play for 4 rounds seems to be the best setup that we have. And I think in all of our experience with professional golf, we ultimately find out that the best way to determine the best player is through stroke play over 72 holes.
Have you asked the critics, Greg, what format they would like?
Well, a lot of it,
they never have a solution. These people that bring up things. I'm definitely guilty of this.
Yeah, you whine and complain without a solution. Right. That's a big rules violation. You got to have a solution. So one, I'm not really complaining about it.
Right.
But I think the ask from people seems to be a team, some kind of a team format where the team actually carries weight and the players from the U.S. have to play together. Because there's really no team aspect to it. There's the Tommy Fleetwood and Paul Casey from England. They don't have to know each other. They don't have to try. They basically just go out and play under the same flag, but it means nothing because it's just an individual event. So I guess I see where they're coming from on that front.
I guess we'll see. Try again in 3 more years and see what happens. Okay. Kasumi Gaseki Country Club. See, if you remember back to Rio, a course was actually constructed specifically for the Olympics. I believe it was a Gil Hans design. It took them however long to do. They built it. Not the case this time around. This course is basically 100 years old, but it was redesigned by Tom Fazio about 5 years ago to modernize it a little bit, to make it longer, significantly longer than they normally played. It'll play about 7,400 yards. The Fazios added about 500 yards to it. And they did something that is pretty unique because if you think back to the Zozo Championship, a lot of these Japanese courses have 2 greens on every single hole because of, I don't know, the way that the weather can affect the strains of grass. You play one green in the summer and one green in the winter because they're two different types of grass. The Fazios came in and made those two greens into one. So kind of an interesting redesign and an interesting challenge that they had on their hands.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, I think it's just going to be the optics of it are going to be really interesting, especially with those greens. But, outside of that, we're pretty straightforward here, right? I mean, it's a par 71, 7,400 and change. So, it's, you want to be, I guess, a little bit long. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but, the rough is pretty penal here. We've got some, tree line fairways for the most part. So outside of that, is there anything, we need to be considering when it comes to kind of like analyzing this course?
Greg, do you have, I have something that's going to derail us. So if you have something real, you should go now.
So I've done a little, all right, I'll go quickly. I've done a little looking around at the golf course. I can't wait to be derailed, by the way, but the reading that I've done hasn't had the same kind of descriptions that we normally get here, where it's going to favor X, Y, and Z. But I was able to watch some videos and flyovers of the holes and get that kind of voiceover description. The thing the biggest thing that I notice is the angles of the greens. So the greens are all set at some sort of angle where the farther right you go, the longer it gets to carry the front edge. The farther left you go, the farther, kind of like the 12th hole at Augusta National, that similar concept. So that has a tendency of benefiting guys who have really high apexes, depending on the firmness or softness of the golf course. I heard an interest. I think there was a language barrier thing here because I heard the superintendent talking about how it changes. And he said that at least the translation we got was when it's soft or when it's dry, it's soft and it gets heavy and firm when it rains. So I feel like that's backwards. I don't think you're going to see the ball bounce more. He's either talking about the soil underneath getting like thicker and or it was just something was lost in translation. So it's hard to take anything from that. But the angled greens definitely play a role. I just don't know how firm the greens are going to be at this point.
The only thing I was going to mention is a couple of things. There's two courses here. There's an East course and the West course. They're going to use the East course. Hideki Matsuyama, not only our reigning Masters champion, coming from the host country, but has won twice on the West course here. He won the 2009 Japan Junior and the 2010 Asia Pacific Amateur. I believe the latter one was the one that got him into the 2011 Masters. So just, fun little nuggets to share. It's Olympics week. There's a lot going on.
It's not nothing,
It's not nothing.
It's a different golf course, but this is the guy. Hideki Matsuyama is the guy here. He's the guy to beat. We'll see what happens. It's a lot of pressure. Probably means he won't win gold, but I can't wait to see what he does.
According to odds makers, the guy was Jon Rahm. I woke up Sunday morning, checked my phone, and saw that Jon Rahm had tested positive for COVID and has withdrawn. And just hours earlier, Saturday evening, we learned that Bryson DeChambeau, same thing, positive test, and has been replaced by Patrick Reed. As of this moment, the Spanish Golf Federation has not replaced Jon Rahm. I had heard rumors that Jorge Campillo was trying to get over there, but right now we've got 59 golfers. And Sia, this really changed the entire complexion of the field. It came out, the news came out before, DFS pricing dropped, which is good, but it now essentially asserts Colin Morikawa, the Open champion, as the favorite to win this gold medal.
Yeah, and I guess this is his first Olympics, but he wins everything the first time as it is. So, I mean, it completely makes sense that Colin Morikawa is the favorite here. I mean, he's just playing better than some of these kind of bigger names, if you will, the Justin Thomases, the Rory McIlroys of the world, even the Hideki Matsuyamas. So, I mean, Xander is obviously in that conversation, but I see no problem with Colin being the shortest number out here.
Lining up after Morikawa is Xander, which I think is hilarious. I mean, listen, I love Xander. The guy who doesn't win is the second shortest odds to win this. I guess it's a no cut thing, Greg. But because the next two guys, Xander and JT, they're like your no cut specialists. They're the guys we fire up at all these, WGC and all these one-off events.
And they've played well in Asia before.
Yeah.
for whatever that's worth. Xander Schauffele didn't he win the HSBC? I think he hunted down Tony
Correct.
Finau and won over there. Justin Thomas has won the CJ Cup twice.
I was going to say twice. I believe it is twice. Yeah.
I think he won that twice. So he's won, and not in Korea, in South Korea. So they've had success in Asia. They've had success in no cut events as well. So it does make sense. The Americans are piling in. Where's Patrick Reed on the list? He's still got to be up there.
Yeah, I have him at like 14-1 right now. Bryson was, if I remember correctly, was 18-1. Rahm was about 5-1. So it was a pretty seismic shift. Basically, everybody in the top 10 or 12 had their odds shortened when those two guys got bounced.
Right, which makes a lot of sense. And in a way, it makes the event. It makes it really interesting because I don't know. There was a thought that, hey, okay, Jon Rahm is the guy. Bryson, his first time on a golf course like this, will definitely have an advantage going in. Without them, I think it opens things up a little bit. A Xander, a JT, they're a little more unpredictable, but still the best players, and over 4 rounds, still very likely to be in the mix. I think with all that Hideki Matsuyama from Japan, Sung Jae Im, and Siwoo Kim, all that they have to play for, you got to figure they're going to bring their A game as well. So I think their chances just improve a little bit. So I think you're going to see some real drama with that grouping.
Yeah, when you look at this board, see a kind of a 2-part question. How many guys can actually win the gold medal? Because the way that the rankings work, you can only have so many guys from every country, and you start to get down into guys that are 300, 400, 500 in the official World Golf ranking. So part 1, how many guys actually have an opportunity or a realistic chance to win the gold medal? And then is there anybody in the top 15 or 20 that you're kind of circling heading into this event? Because at this point, I think it's wide open.
Yeah, I think it's wide open. I think anybody within the 30-1 range is definitely viable to win a gold medal and certainly to medal in the first place. I mean, as I look down the line, I mean, I do like Colin. I do like Xander. I think Sung Jae Im, I know there's a narrative, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow around Sung Jae Im, but, he does measure out pretty good here in terms of the all-around game. So I could go as far down as Sung Jae Im and probably be okay here.
Pick a guy. Pick a guy 30-1. Who do you like? If you had to make one bet right now, who would it be?
It would be Sung Jae Im.
Okay.
If it was going to be that range, it would be Sung Jae Im. If I could go maybe a little bit shorter than that, maybe a Joaquin Niemann at 20-1.
Yeah, Niemann's interesting. That caught my attention too. He's 20-1. He's longer than people think. I think he's just better than people think. I think he's got the firepower. You give him 4 guaranteed rounds, it certainly becomes interesting. So, Greg, I kind of posed the same question to you of these, call it 30-1 guys, which I think are, there's a big gap on William Hill. After Mark Leishman at 28-1, it drops off to Guido and Garrick Higo at 45-1. So William Hill kind of saying, here are the guys that have a chance. It's 28-1 and shorter. Is there someone that stands out for you?
Well, I think Corey Connors goes into and I know he's way shorter than that. So he stands out to me just on that board as a guy that is going to have a chance anywhere he goes because of his ball striking. But if I go down the list, guys that are a little bit longer, who is the highest world golf ranked player that I think could really win? I got to think it's Mito, right? I think
I love that.
I think he's kind of the cap, and he's a guy that's had great success in the world of golf of late. He's definitely feeling very confident. He won twice on the Corn Ferry Tour, right?
This year and 3 this season, which goes back to last year.
So that's your Battlefield promotion, and all of a sudden he's a PGA Tour player and kind of on a heater. And so you look at that number, and it's really long. I think he's the longest guy that I feel comfortable with. That's where I'd go. The longest on my list for sure.
Yeah, I love that. He's 100-1. So, Sia, we can kind of touch on this little narrative here because I think you have to be really careful with the way that we talk about the two South Korean players. That's Sung Jae-im and Siwoo Kim. We have talked about this in the past couple of weeks. Any medal for them would mean that they would not have to go through the required military training in South Korea, which essentially means they're going to miss 2 years of their golfing career. And we were just kind of talking about this before we went hot. I think they're going to get a lot of narrative money. They're going to get like, hey, I'm just going to auto bet Sung Jae. I'm going to auto bet Siwoo Kim. Sung Jae's 28-1. Siwoo Kim is 50-1. However, keep in mind, there is no difference in color for them between a gold medal and a bronze medal. So if they're really in it and they have to protect the bronze or a silver instead of going out and trying to win gold, that might impact your outright bet, but it is certainly not changing the outcome for those guys.
Yeah, which is why if you can find like a win, place, or show, obviously like a top 3 or 2 medal, that's what you want to do with Sung Jae and Siwoo Kim. I definitely think Sung Jae is a lot more realistic. And by the way, as far as that narrative is concerned, again, we can talk about this on the DFS show tomorrow too. But I mean, it's kind of a real narrative, so much so that you kind of wonder. And I don't know how the groups are going to go out on the final day, but you kind of wonder if, Sung Jae is near the top and he's grouped with a guy that, is also in medal contention. I mean, I don't think it's super, again, I'm speculating. I'm the narrative guy. I totally get it. But it's not that far-fetched to assume for like at least a split second that, hey, somebody's going to, maybe hit it in the water so somebody else can maybe, get bronze or something like that. Again, it's fun to talk about, unfortunately, at these players' expense, because in all likelihood, they probably don't want to serve that 2 years in the South Korean military. With that said, it's a factor. I mean, by the way, these guys, dropped out of the Open, right? And I'm presuming, and Rick and Greg, maybe this, that they probably got out here a little sooner and might be a little bit more familiar with this course. I'm assuming that. I don't actually know it, but either way, they've been focused on this for quite some time.
They have certainly turned their attention to the Olympics a lot sooner than the rest of the field. Okay, Greg, you get our closing thoughts here. We've got Captain America lacing them up for Team USA. We've got a golf course that should play really great, should test these golfers. And even without Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, there's a lot of interesting storylines. Closing thoughts on how this Olympics could shape up.
Well, let's hope that everything goes smoothly and we don't have, off the golf course narratives that in a negative landscape. So that's one thing. Second thing, no cut event, small field, half the field you probably haven't heard of. It's easy to look at that and say this is a weak field, or so because it's a weak field, it's not going to turn out to be a great tournament. But as we know, in no cut 4-round events, the cream always seems to rise to the top. So I am predicting a great finish here on the PGA in the Olympics with some guys you're familiar with on the PGA Tour. I think they're going to show up to play, and I think they're going to give it a great run. So I am very excited to see what happens. Very excited to see how it all turns out.
Yeah, and sorry, Sia, go ahead.
No, I was going to jump in because Greg, you mentioned Mito Pereira and 7 birdies his final day at the 3M Open. So this guy is primed and ready. It's interesting that you just mentioned him.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he wasn't. In a way, I wish he wasn't playing. It probably means he's not going to have a lot of practice around time with the protocols and everything. But that being said, I love his confidence right now.
Yeah, you could argue that the news of Bryson and Rahm not playing, it's a little bit sour, but it is not going to matter Sunday evening or Sunday morning for us or whatever when someone is donning a gold medal on the podium. It's not going to matter. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. They're going to be battling it out for pride, and we'll be around to cover it. Full DFS preview on Monday, mega preview pod on Tuesday, and then I don't know, Jacob, we'll have to tweet out the content schedule. I'm not sure what it is. The time zones are all wacky this week, so keep an eye out for all of that. Let me thank producer Jacob, does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there is Sia Nejad. You can find him on Twitter at Sia Nejad. Greg DuCharme, you can find at The Real GFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.